Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Konager here. Welcome to another installment of Going on the Road. Today, taking place in a new vehicle, but it's not mine, don't worry. Betty the TT is still very much so around, but Slagathor has recently traded out his FJ Cruiser, which I lamented, and gotten himself a Fiat 500 Abarth, at quite a bargain, and I figured I would take it out on a little trip today and see what the whole Fiat life is like, and use this opportunity to do our final Cone on the Road for the year, as it is almost Christmas. It is December 23rd today, the day I'm recording this and probably posting it. A lot to talk about in the current scheme of things. Most notably the fact that this is the first month. Last month I kind of went over a lot of the details about how I was I was making some rather big changes personally. Mostly changes that were to help ease the transition towards working full-time as a content creator, and I'm still going to keep using that term because I can't figure out any other term that's better, even though it still sounds weird. I don't like it. But most notably of that, I was moving, so I had to move house to try and ease up expenses and stuff like that, and to try and put myself into a little bit of a more comfortable situation to be doing stuff. This little car, it makes a little bit of ruckus, so I don't think I'll be able to talk during acceleration. It's not terrible, it's not oppressive, but it's there. It makes noise, a lot more than the Audi does, for sure. But I am happy to say that now I am basically done with the moving process. I still have my tools and cars and all that garbage at the old house, because I am renting the garage space there, as it's just a really that's a very good place for that stuff. It's a very comfortable place for it, and the new place that I'm staying doesn't have as good of a garage space yet. It's on the agenda to get that, but that'll be good for now. We can finish out the Supra, and hopefully in the coming months get the Datsun on the road. Those are two of my main goals car-wise here in the not too distant future. There's a lot to do on the car front in the coming few months. I say that, but I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be, but I really want to get Red back and running. Like I mentioned, I touched on it last Cone on the Road. It had some issues. The biggest thing holding it back right now is the fact that it needs a clutch. As somebody that may or may not own this car may have did the final send-off on the clutch in Red. No evidence on that, other than the fact that, you know, he was driving it and it broke. But beyond that, I mean, there's really no evidence that it's honestly, it's something that had to happen either way, because the clutch that I had in it does not have enough power, or does not have enough hold for the amount of power we seem to be making. I thought we would be making, you know, in the 220 range. It ends up we're probably putting more like 270, 280 to the flywheel, and the clutch is not really rated for that. So it had to happen either way. There was no way that clutch was going to hold. So that's a big hold up for progress with that, and hopefully in the not too distant future we can get back to working on Red. I'm very antsy to get back to autocross and to get that car just, you know, back up and running again. It's such a staple for my life. It's as many changes as I've gone through in the past 5 to 6 years. The 240 has always been the constant, and it's nice to have a constant like that, you know? It's nice to, when I sit in that car, I don't know. It almost just kind of reminds me of simpler times. And it's just nice. It's a good feeling. It's been a long time. I mean, it's been, 12, 13 years, something like that I've been driving that 240 or others. And just like I said, that's the constant amongst all the other changes. As far as the other changes go, so far so good. Gotta say thank you to everybody for supporting this changeover period. I know there was a little bit of a lack in content, and certainly a little bit of a lull there for the transition, but everybody's been super supportive of everything that I'm doing, and I very much so appreciate that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I've made the right decision. I certainly I was pretty confident that I was doing the right thing, but there's always that little voice in the back of your head going, "Oh no, what have you done?" But so far, yeah, like I said, I feel great. I physically and mentally feel so much better. It's been very nice for the past month to be so preoccupied, not only moving, but also building the new studio. That kept me pretty busy. I had things to do every day. Every day that I woke up, I had a task I needed to achieve. And whenever I feel that way, that's usually the way and usually the time I stay the most focused. I don't let my mind meander off into all of the worries. So yeah, it was good. But I'm excited to be mostly done with that. I'm not quite ready for an office tour just yet, or a studio tour. Still work to be done there, but I'm excited to be back to work, basically. I'm excited to get back to making video. I had no idea how much doing stuff like that actually means to me until I stopped doing it, and it just felt like there was something missing, missing out on the staples like bingo night. It was just like sitting there Sunday night going, something's wrong, something is missing here. But now I'm excited. We're getting back to things. We're getting back to streams. We're doing new streams. I just did last night a very, very fun little stream where we played a forklift simulator. A lot of people enjoyed that. I'm gonna be honest, I really am trying to push the live streaming stuff pretty hard right now. By no means am I giving up on doing video stuff, but instead of adding a lot more video content with the additional time that I have now, my goal is just to make it more like 50-50. Whereas before, it was 50% of my time I was making video, 25% of my time was doing live streams, and 25% of my time was doing, work. Now trying to make that more 50-50. And I'm excited about that, trying to push that further, and still excited to be doing all of that my own way. Despite going full-time now, despite doing this, on a professional level, I guess, I'm not in any means trying to reinvent anything. I just want to stick to what I've always done, which is make video that presents itself in the style of Cone Dodger, which is perfectly understandable by me, not the most popular style, and not for necessarily the masses. But despite the fact that it's maybe not the most popular format, maybe it's not the most mass appealing, wide audience appealing style of video, I still feel like there's enough of a core audience out there that enjoys it and is looking for, true heartfelt content like that, unabashed, just 100% pure personality, no real cover on anything. There's no Vaseline over the lens trying to make everything look wonderful and great. There's enough of you great viewers out there that I think it's possible that we can actually make that work as a sustainable thing. And I'm really excited to be pushing towards that. 2016 was a very rough year for me. I felt it was a very stale year, that I didn't feel like I had made any progress towards anything, really. I didn't feel like I had achieved any of the goals that I had tried to achieve before, turning 30 and all that good stuff. On the flip side, 2017 has been a very inspiring year for me. I feel like for the first time in maybe 5 or 6 years, when things kind of went to shit, I feel for the first time like progress is being made, and I feel when I wake up, I feel inspired that the things I'm working on today are very worth my time, and they're very, very positive. We're moving in a good direction towards things, and it's a great thing to be able to feel like that. It certainly helps my day-to-day stress levels tremendously. But I mean, we did things, I did things I never imagined I would ever do this year, especially like the Minecraft marathon. That was, the more time I get beyond it, I realize how much of a kind of, this might sound a little dramatic, but it was a life-changing experience. It really was. It cemented in my mind the possibility of what I'm doing actually being real, actually being worthwhile. That's what that did to me. And that was, like I said, it was a very good turning point towards all of this stuff. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be sunshine and daisies from here. I'm still not in an amazing situation, either financially or, towards anything really. Like, for instance, these rumble strips that I hate. It's certainly not that case, but just feeling good day to day about stuff. It's pretty nice, It's nice to feel that way every day, and it's helping me do more, to help push towards doing things, other things that I never would have thought possible before. So cool. It's just cool. It really is. I mean, there was other, amazing experiences, like seeing the solar eclipse this year was extremely cool. That's something that, it wasn't necessarily like an earth-shattering, going across country type of deal to do, but it was just such a cool experience, and that's what I want to have. I want to have cool experiences, and I want to be able to share those with other people. And to kind of go back towards the topic of the type of content that I make and the attitude I have towards it. There's been series this year that have been very, very surprising to me, had unexpected results. Obviously, the F1 2016 series that we did on YouTube, totally unexpected, and very unexpected results. I had no idea what to really expect from that. Fiats. Oh, Fiats. But yes, like I was saying, the 2016 series certainly was a surprise to do it at all. It was a surprise the direction that it took, and the fact that it was kind of it was a success as far as the numbers and stuff goes, and it was a success in the way that at the end of it, even though sure, Beef and Slip, they certainly didn't actually enjoy the game, I still think they enjoyed the series. I still think they all enjoyed hanging out together, and that's what was really important in that. Not necessarily if they enjoyed the game or not, but that we all had fun as a group. And that was cool to experience it that way. I don't know that personally the the personality group was gelling as well as maybe some people would have hoped. There's a lot of comparisons to draw back to the old Kurt and Beef series, and you know what? I see a lot of similarities between the two, but I think a huge difference between the old series and the new series is Beef, maybe through seeing, I don't know, maybe the competitiveness of me, or just the overall attitude of the viewers, he flipped from it being just a goofy good time into actually putting the effort into improving as a driver and improving his skills in the game. And it was really cool to see him push that way, I think. I don't know if enough people maybe focused on that side of it, that maybe they focused a bit too much on the rivalry side of it, which was never really a thing as far as we were concerned. That was all fabricated by viewers, which is, as people who make videos, really cool to see. Even if it does turn against you at times, it's so interesting and so wild to see the perception of your viewers and the theories and the other storylines that they come up with that we didn't even think about, or I didn't even think about. You know, it's just it's wild to think of things that way, and I relate it back to like back when I used to watch TV shows more. Now these days I'm starting to watch a couple more TV series again to get back into that stuff. Now there's a little bit more time in my life, and it clicks to me that like I do the same thing. Like I've been watching Stranger Things, forced by Slag, but no, it's a fantastic show. And as I'm sitting there watching it, I'm not just watching it and enjoying the plot lines that are being thrown at me. I'm not just enjoying the stories that are being thrown at me. I'm also the whole time thinking about all the stuff going on in the background and what it could mean or what could be happening, even if it's not being laid out for us. And viewers are going to do the same thing for a YouTube series, even if it's just a silly Let's Play series. They're still liable to do that same thing, and I'm starting to understand that now. Now, it's not typically the case that any of the videos that I do necessarily have much of a underlying storyline to them. It's usually just more, here's me, here's the video, here's what I'm doing, and here's my reactions to what I'm doing. That's the kind of video that I do. But I do enjoy the storyline stuff too. Like the automation series, I loved doing like the second Vector Automotive Challenge I did, where we did our fake storyline of a car company through history. I loved doing that, and I loved making the storyline there. So the potential is there that I could do more stuff like that in the future. It's something I feel like now I'm kind of lacking in, because the F1 2017 series is pretty straightforward. It's me versus the game. There's not a whole lot of extra storyline there, even though it's a very well-received series, and I love doing it. Even though Codemasters blows chunks, they still make damn entertaining games. They really do, at the core of it. So yeah, still, every time I play it, I go into it with the attitude of I'm making the most of this, and I'm gonna end this recording thinking that I had fun, even if I'm not as successful as other people, even if I'm not as good at the game as other people. And I'm trying to take that attitude towards more things. I'm just trying to focus on having the most fun I can at the end of the day. The same is going to go for the serious side of things too, like the iRacing stuff, or the Assetto Corsa stuff, the rally stuff. Yes, I'm very dedicated to doing well, and I want to do better, but I have to set goals for myself that are realistic and are are done in a way that at the end of the day, even if it went terribly, I learned something and I had a good experience that I considered to be fun, and I considered it to be something I'm glad I did. Not something like, oh well, I guess I got forced to drive this stupid car again, and I had to do this stupid race with all these stupid people, blah, 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 blah. I found myself getting into that attitude a little bit too much with some of the iRacing stuff, especially, that I was doing. I was just taking it, I was letting people push me into taking it too seriously. Because especially when it comes to sim racing, people want to take it really, really freaking seriously. I know it's there, like I know the attitude is there that you want to make it as much like real racing as possible, because none of us, for the most part, are real racers. But at some point, even in real racing, if you're pushing that hard to make it into just a professional thing and just a purely skill-based activity, it's gonna stop being fun for you. And I do think real race car drivers fight that same thing. It's gotta be serious, you gotta take it seriously, but you also have to have a little bit, somewhere deep down inside of you, you have to have a little bit of that attitude of, I'm doing this for my personal happiness. I'm not doing this to prove anything to anybody else or anything like that. What I'm doing this for is, at the end of the day, I'm doing something that is making my life better. It's a little bit of a broad-reaching subject and a little bit of a stretch, I'm sure, but it's, I don't know, it's, like I said, it's been a very exciting and inspirational year, and this is the kind of stuff that tosses through my brain on a daily basis. What is Code on the Road? Basically, you're just hearing the ever-written scroll of random BS that my brain is trying to compute on any given moment. Which kind of brings up another subject. I want to briefly touch on this. Last Code on the Road, somebody brought up the Tom Scott video about doing video while driving and the possible dangers of that. First off, I'm going to say thank you for addressing that, and it's very important for people to do that. We got to look out for each other, because it's very easy to get complacent with you know, different things that we do, risks that we may be taking and not even thinking about. Sometimes an activity can become so mundane and so everyday that you don't realize that it's actually, you know, taking a risk. So upon reading that, I sat down and I examined the risks. I examined the video, I compared it to what I'm doing, and I made sure that I still felt comfortable with what I was doing. In the end, obviously I'm still doing it, but the reason that I feel comfortable with it is mostly because what he is doing is far beyond what I am doing. He is a professional actor that is playing out scripted scenes while driving a car or doing whatever. That takes a significant more mental fortitude to do, and I can definitely see where trying to like recite a script or trying to nail the words perfectly every time, I do that. Like, I do that when I'm recording some videos, you know, things like announcement videos or things that I'm trying to portray, you know, a certain level of professionalism. I will go over line after line, repeating, and you just get so focused on not what you're saying, but saying it perfectly. And it's a very, very intense thing to do. Versus this, like I said, it's just the constant clutter that is the voice in my head being said out loud, basically. It's no different than if Slag or somebody was sitting in the passenger seat of this vehicle and I was rambling on. That's basically what it is. It's also very similar to, like, I mean, maybe not quite to the degree, because this is a lot less intense, but like Matt Farah does he basically does car reviews this style while driving through the mountains and stuff. And the reason I think he's able to do that isn't because we're better drivers than Tom Scott or anything like that. No, it's because what we're doing is just speaking the thoughts that are happening in our brains all of the time. And it's not a recited thing. We're not trying to stick to a script or anything like that. We're not actors. We're just people that have brain waves, and instead of just letting them sit in our head where they belong, we try to share them with others. I think I just described what it means to be a YouTuber. The other thing I picked up on is he references the camera a lot, because he's an actor. That's what actors do. They make eye contact with the viewers, and they make eye contact with their environment to make sure that it seems like a proper environment, like a proper production. Versus, I don't really do that. This is just me driving. Sometimes I'll reference the camera, but really it's nothing more than a fleeting glance, and it's certainly nothing that I'm particularly focused on. So again, appreciate the concern, but I don't quite think, for me, that it's a concern, or at least I went through and I weighed my risks, and I weighed all of the options, and I decided that I felt okay with doing this. All right, well, I'm gonna go get myself a either really late lunch or really early dinner, and then for the rest of this, I'm gonna do an impromptu Fiat 500 Abarth review. So enjoy that. So when it comes to styling, I mean, it's not perfect. I'm not exactly a tiny car enthusiast. There are some that I like, and some I don't. This is a nice mix, especially when it comes to hot hatches. A lot of the times they go way over the top with styling, but this is not that. It's enough you can tell it's something different. It's something more than a normal 500, but it's not way overdone like the Fiesta ST, the Focus ST, even the Mazdas, the Mazda Speed 3 sometimes are a little, I don't know, they just got a little too wild, trying to make it look like a Lamborghini. It's never gonna be that. It's always gonna be a little hatchback. It's what it is. Overall, I don't love the front, but it's very 500. I don't hate it. I like it in white. I wish it was white with white wheels and the red stripe instead of white with black wheels and the black stripe, but it ain't my car. And you know what? This thing was freaking cheap. It was really cheap. I'm not gonna tell you how much because it's not my car, but for a car with 50,000 miles on it, it should have cost a lot more than this. So, you know what? For the money, you get a lot of car in a little package. And if you know Slag, he's not a small dude, but actually fits very, very well, and it's pretty comfortable. Now, this car is mostly stock, but there's one thing that's been changed, and I'll let you guess what that is. So yeah, when you buy one of these, they sound pretty mean. It's a very strange combination because it's a real mean sounding car in a tiny little package. If you did just a blind test of like, here's an exhaust, what do you think this car looks like? This ain't what you're gonna come up with. That's for darn sure. That's one of the strangest parts about the car, I believe. It's pretty cool, and it's really not oppressive. This car has what is basically a stock exhaust system with the main muffler having been deleted before he got to it anyway. This is how he bought it. Like I said, it's mean. It makes a bark, but it's not oppressive. It's not like a regular four-banger with a loud exhaust. It doesn't overwhelm you. And it's got that kind of mean bite to it. The comparison is, this car is like that guy you know with a really booming radio voice, and then turns out to be a scrawny, you know, tall guy. That's this car. That's the sound versus this car. It's very, very bizarre. Driving it, I've driven other small hatchbacks. Slag previously owned a Mazda 2. It was a manual, just a regular Mazda 2. I don't think there even is a sport version of the Mazda 2. But that car, a lot of similarities here, but inside, this car feels much larger. I don't feel nearly as cramped, and I don't feel nearly as obviously in a small car. When you get in the inside of this car, it's like you stepped into a portal to another dimension, and it opens up to a whole different world, because it's just much bigger. It feels much bigger in here than it looks like it should, which is very bizarre. Truly, truly is bizarre. So yeah, that's the good part of it. I mean, I'm used to being in low cars and small cars. I actually don't feel very low in this car at all. I don't feel like I'm on the ground. I don't feel like I'm in the ground. But apart from the size of it, the actual like feeling of it, you know, pretty similar, I think, in terms of like quality to the Mazda 2. Certainly more rattles. The windows are a little bit more whistly than I certainly remember the 2 being. The overall, you know, fit and finish, maybe not quite as tight. More focus was put onto making it look sporty, making it look special, and it does look pretty good. It's not nearly as annoying as I found the Mini interiors. This is much more utilitarian and much more driver-oriented, which is nice. I like it when an interior is driver-oriented, because who else needs, you know, the information? Who else needs to see all the other stuff? Nobody needs to see that. So I like the fact that it's pretty uniquely driver-oriented. Interestingly, power-wise, it doesn't quite feel as obviously top-heavy as I expected. The only comparison I really have, oh man, I've got to put the sun visor down, and you guys aren't going to be able to see. Yeah, that's going to be in the view of the camera, isn't it? Problems. It'll be good enough. It'll be fine. So, yeah, the only comparison I have for a turbo car with a small engine is the Solstice that I had. And that car, which had a very high output turbo, but came on very early and peaked very early, and didn't want to rev to more than like 5,500 before it started to, like, you know, peter out. It still felt very obviously turbo. You still got that very strong, obvious surge of turbo power. I'm not really getting that with this car. There's just not power, and then there's power. It's not really a surge. It just feels like, when I remember driving the Mazda 2, and then it feels like a normal car, to me anyway. It certainly does gain power with the turbo, and you know, it gains speed, but it doesn't necessarily feel turbo heavy. It doesn't feel like you're driving, you know, a turbo car to me, even though it does have lag, and it has the lag without the pull, without the snap. I guess it's maybe a gradual move from like non-turbo to on-turbo. It's also a deceptively quick car. Not fast, but quick. And it does it in a way that you don't feel it, which is dangerous. It's very dangerous. The Audi, not quite that way. I don't know if it's the seating position or the way the power comes on or what it is, but it's a very deceptive car in its speed. It goes from feeling like, you know, you're just driving normal speed, and then it takes off but you don't really get a sense that you're going faster. I find myself getting up to 50 miles an hour and feeling like I'm only really doing 35. I guess that's just a difference between this car and the cars I'm used to driving where I'm on the ground. When you're on the ground in a car, when your seat's real low to the floor and you're real close to the road, I think you get a much higher sense of speed. So yeah, I really don't get a sense of speed with this car. I'm sure if I drove it more, I might, but just initial driving impressions, I really don't. What you do get an impression of is tightness. It feels very taut. I know it's so cliche, it's been so overused, but this car handles like a go-kart. It instantly responds to your inputs. Unfortunately, not the inputs of your go pedal, because of drive-by-wire and turbo. You stack those two on top of each other and you get that kind of gross muddy feeling, which was one of the things I didn't really love about the Solstice. Oh, there we go. But the steering, the suspension, the handling, all feels pinpoint. It feels like there's zero lag, there's zero latency. It feels like a go-kart should feel, really. I don't know how to turn on the headlights. I'm just assuming that's the right button. The shifter, not Honda good. Honda makes very, very good front-wheel drive based transmissions, and most importantly shifters and shifter linkages. This is not quite that good, and it's the kind that's mounted on the dashboard instead of on a center console. Not a big fan of that either. It's also not the worst. The Mazda, I think, had a worse feeling transmission, and it's not as bad as I very briefly drove a Toyota Yaris with a manual. That was probably the worst one that I've felt. It's somewhere in between the two. It's okay. Doesn't have any feel. When you change gear, you don't feel like you're moving, a lever. You feel like you're moving. It's a piece of plastic that's flopping around, and that's the difference between like this shifter and the Honda shifters, or even the Audi, which is of course a transverse car. That's not a standard manual direct linkage either. But that shifter, when you engage the gears, when you change the gears, you feel like you're doing mechanical work, versus this feels more like a computer joystick. It doesn't give you that kind of feedback. That's one of the problems I typically have with front-wheel drive cars and transverse cars. So it's not really probably a knock of the car as much as it is just a nature of the car. It's very civil on the road. It's much more bouncy than I'm sure a regular Fiat 500 is. It feels like a car that has like drop springs or something like that installed on it. These, I've found out, are actually taller than the European 500s. I feel like it could be a little lower. For as stiff as the suspension is, I feel like it could be lower. It has that sport suspension feel without the sport suspension look, which is a little disappointing. It is nice to drive a car again with suspension like that. The Audi definitely glides bumps much better. That obviously has mag ride, so you can make it handle like this a little bit more, but you're missing the mechanical feeling. This car feels very mechanical to the road, and I love that about it. Like when you hit a bump, you feel the bumps through the wheel, you feel the bumps through the suspension, but not only that, but you feel the geometry changing. Like you feel the movement of the suspension very directly. So that's the advantage of a car like this that has no filter. They don't have the money in the budget to make a car like this cost something affordable and be able to hide those road feelings behind some kind of mask. On the flip side, it doesn't give you nearly as much confidence. When I turn in this car, I feel confident that it's going to stick, but I don't feel confident that I'm not being harsh on the car. It feels like you're really pushing the car. So there's a slight difference. Different strokes for different folks. I really like cars that are like this and are very, very taut and very, you know, pinpoint. But I could see where something like this would wear on you if you drove it every day. And that's the point of this car. There's really no reason to buy this car as your weekend racer. This is the car you buy as your daily driver that's economical and fun, because that's a very hard thing to find. There's a lot of fun vehicles, there's a lot of economic vehicles. There ain't many that are both. This is certainly one of the few. It's pretty fun in roundabouts. I'll say that much. Yep. Now, I am not a very good car reviewer because I don't drive like an asshole. I would make a much better car reviewer if I did. I'm not a big fan of going out and breaking road laws, you know, in public and residential areas. And because of the urban sprawl of this area, there's not a lot of places to get away here. All right, these rough roads right here, like they're working on the pavement. It's rough, but it's not backbreaking by any means. I've driven some cars and have owned some cars and have made some cars that in areas like this will hurt you, including red. But this is not that at all. So let's see, we're in third gear now. We're gonna pull for, this is a 25 to 55 speed limit right here. So I'm just in third gear, flat foot. We're at boost now. I mean, I really do think it pulls much higher than I imagined it would. It's got a little bit of that turbo strain. Turbo cars, turbo engines don't like heavy load at low RPMs because you're shoving boost into an engine that's under load that it can't overcome yet. So it's constantly fighting to make more power, but then it can't fully use it yet because it doesn't have enough torque, it doesn't have enough power in its RPM curve to really overcome that. That is one of the nice parts of having a higher power NA car than having a higher power turbo car. No matter how tiny the turbo is, it still needs RPM to be happy. And this is, I'm sure, it's a tiny engine, 1.4 liters, and I'm sure a tiny turbo, but it still has that feeling. So if I were to do that same thing in second gear, obviously second gear is not going to go as far as it does in some cars, but you're probably going to have more fun. You're going to get to feel that turbo pull, and you don't always get to feel that in an NA car. I've not done a full review on the TT yet, but in that car, you don't get that sudden pull of power at all. It's just, there's a lot of power when you hit the gas, and then it just kind of maintains that level until you need to shift again. On the flip side, cruising at 50 miles an hour in fifth gear, this is only a 5-speed box, which kind of surprised me, to be honest. Say I'm doing 50 miles an hour and it speeds up to 55. I can't just lay into the throttle and increase up to 55. You can, it will do it, but you can just tell it's not as happy about it. You know, it's having to strain, and I don't like feeling like I'm straining a car. I don't enjoy that feeling, and I've never driven a turbo car that doesn't give me that feeling. Not a lot of tough turns here, but in this, you know, just a wide sweeping turn, it's amazing how little you turn the wheel. Can't see? Son, why? Why are you the Sunshine State? You're terrible, Florida. You know, interior-wise, it's pretty good. Pretty good for layout. It feels very engineered to be driven, and engineered to be comfortable for drivers, which is nice. Very convenient arrangement here for your stuff. Additional cup holders in the back. Here's that shifter I was talking about. You can kind of see that it's, you know, just a little flimsy. I like the body color there. My only complaint is I really hate the gauge cluster, particularly the tach. The information in the middle is okay. Oh, it's gonna make noise. This I find pretty useless. just because it's so out of my line of sight that I don't find that particularly useful. But otherwise, you know what? For the kind of car it is, for the price of it, it's pretty impressive. I am not leaving this experience displeased. I'm very glad I get to drive this to Texas in less than a month, basically, rather than an FJ Cruiser. I'll tell you that much. And that'll do it for this extended Cone on the Road with an impromptu review of a Fiat. Thank you everybody for everything. It's been an amazing year. I can't wait to continue to push further, and hope that 2018 feels as great and inspiring as 2017 has felt. And I have all of you to thank for that 100%. Like, I personally put myself under a lot of pressure, and I feel like I've pushed myself further, pushed myself out of my comfort zone to try and do things. But as much as I feel like, you know, I've accomplished something for doing that, I can't help but feel like I could have never done it without the support of many of you watching this video. So thank you very much. Have a great holiday season, and we'll see you in 2018.